want you to imagine a 16-year-old girl patient comes to you and says, "Doctor, I want a termination." Now, will you enable that? Will you oppose it? I would argue you can determine that until you ask your patient a question. What do you want terminated? Maybe she's coming to you saying, "I want a termination of my current prescription." Maybe she wishes to terminate her job because it's too stressful. Maybe she wishes to terminate her ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend. And depending on what she wants terminated will determine whether you as a physician facilitate what she desires or oppose what she desires. And I bring that up because when it comes to pregnancy termination, we really have to define what it is we mean by that in order to determine whether that is something physicians should be involved with or should not be involved with. As was pointed out, the case I'm making today is that abortion is an unethical act. I'm going to be focusing my presentation on three parts. The first is I'm going to make the case for the personhood, the humanity of the preborn child. The second thing I'm going to do is make the case for how abortion is an action which directly and intentionally kills that child. And finally, I'm going to refer to the policies of established bodies of authority, including medical bodies, in order to make the case that physicians should not in any way be involved with abortion, which includes referrals. My first point then, the case for the personhood of humanity of the preborn. I ask you to think for a moment, what is a person? What is a person? Well, one day, I asked my 2.5-year-old niece, Monica, what a person is, and this was her reply.
Hey, Monica, what's a person?
No matter a person in a person, no matter how small.
That's brilliant. Who taught you that?
Mommy taught the hurricanes here to cool.
That's right. Are you a person?
No.
You're not?
I'm a girl.
Are girls not people? People?
No.
Well, then who's a person?
You.
So boys aren't people, according to my niece. Girls aren't people. Now, according to her logic, if girls aren't people and I'm a person, then I'm not a girl. So my niece is clearly confused. She is as confused as a group of grade 7 students I once asked that question to. What is a person, I said. And the first student, this one boy in the class, raised his hand instantly and he says, well, if I had to define a person, I would say a person is someone with 2 arms and 2 legs. Really? I said, that's interesting because this motivational speaker from Australia, Nick Vujicic, has no arms and legs. Is he a person? I asked these students. They all agreed that he is. Well, then I said, that can't be our definition. What's a person? So the boy in the class raises his hand. He goes, well, a person is someone who can feel things, someone with feelings. I said, really? I said, well, this little girl by the name of Gabby Gingras from the United States has a very rare condition where she cannot feel pain. I said to these students, is Gabby a person even though she can't feel pain? They all agreed with me. She's a person. Well, then that can't be our criteria for a person. What's a person? Short little girl in the front row raises her hand and she says, a person is someone who can think and talk. Really, I said, because when my little nephew Francis was born, he couldn't think or talk. Is he a person? Yes, they all agree when he was born, he was a person. So what is a person? Well, this one girl in the back of the class kept waving her hand, trying to get my attention. Finally, I pointed in her direction and I said, yes, how would you define a person? With a lot of exasperation, she goes, look, it's really easy to figure out if someone is of the species Homo sapiens. And if they are, then they're a person. Now, I would say this young 12-year-old girl was onto something. She was onto something that the United Nations was onto in its Declaration of Human Rights, where it states, recognition of the inherent dignity and the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. It goes on to say in Article 3, everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of the person. Well, who is everyone? Well, this is the Declaration of Human Rights. And they define who everyone is by saying all members of the human family. Now, the use of the term human in this document is very important because human is an objective term that we can determine scientifically. Person is a legal term which has had a changing definition throughout history. person, at one point, was used to deny, or sex rather, was used to deny women personhood status. We were once considered non-persons under the law. Ethnicity was once used to deny Native Americans their personhood status in the United States. Skin color was used to deny blacks their personhood status. And in the human rights abuse that immediately preceded the United Nations 1948 Declaration of Human Rights, religion and race were used to deny Jews personhood status. When societies define personhood based on a quality that some humans have, but not all, inevitably someone gets left out. Whether they're these people, or whether it's people without arms and legs, or people who can't think and talk, or whether it's someone who can't feel pain. When we pick an ability, someone always gets left out. But if we acknowledge our personhood or our right to life based on our membership as a human being, then everyone is safe because it's the one tie that binds each of us. The only thing that we have in common is our human nature. And so the question is, are the preborn members of the human family? Well, we know scientifically that they are. We know at fertilization that if you're dealing with human parents, the offspring they produce has to be of the same species. We also know they're alive because living things come from other living things. Now, granted, there are things that are alive that we won't necessarily give the same protections to that we give to human beings. If living things come from other living things, the sperm and the egg from which the living zygote came are also alive. So some people may wonder, are you saying we should save the sperm like we should save the zygotes? So this third point is very important, and that is at fertilization, we know we're dealing with a whole human being, not a human part. Yes, we can distinguish human sperm from dog sperm, but the point is that human sperm is not a human being, it's a human part, like my foot, like my hand. But when the sperm fertilizes the egg, those two parts cease to exist, and they form a whole being. And we know that even looking at that basic science you studied in terms of how to distinguish cell types. You distinguish one cell from another by looking at what's it made up of and what does it do. And by looking at these two criteria, we can tell that at the instant of sperm-egg fusion, which is the beginning of that process of fertilization, substantively we are dealing with something that is fundamentally different from what we had prior to sperm-egg fusion. Makeup of the sperm, 23 chromosomes from the dad. Makeup of the egg, 23 from the mom. Behavior, sperm, find an egg and penetrate it. Behavior of the egg, sit there and wait for penetration. But the zygote, sperm-egg fusion, its makeup is the DNA of both the mother and the father contributed by the sperm and egg, even prior to chromosome intermingling. Nonetheless, all of that information is contained. So its makeup is different. Its behavior, of course, the moment one sperm penetrates the egg, no penetration is permitted. So the behavior of that one-celled human being is fundamentally different from the sperm cell or the egg cell. So we know that we are dealing with someone who is of our species. Now, someone may say, oh, and just one of the two other points is the embryology textbooks, Moore and Persaud's, Essentials of Human Embryology. These all clearly state that life begins at fertilization, human development begins at fertilization. Now, admittedly, there are differences between the zygote and an infant. The question is, are these differences morally relevant when it comes to our right to life, when it comes to our personhood? There's a difference of size. There's a difference of the physical and intellectual development. There's a difference of environment, being in the fallopian tube, then the uterus, and the doctor's arms. Finally, there's the difference of dependency. Early in pregnancy, a great reliance on the mother's body to survive. Later in pregnancy, not as much. The question is, should our right to life, our personhood, be based on some or all of this criteria, or should it be based on our membership within the human species? Well, look at the period of time between birth and, let's say, an adult, and ask yourself over a 20-year period what has changed. Those same four things. There's a change in size, physical and intellectual development, environment constantly changes, and dependency generally trends to go downwards, where we become very dependent younger and then more independent as we're older. So the question is, would we deny a born individual who's human her personhood status because she differs from an adult in these four ways? Of course not. Neither then should we deny the preborn their personhood status simply because they differ from us in these four ways. What is consistent amongst all of us, as all these things are inconsistent, is our human nature.